Good day, students. In today's workshop, we're going to recreate a detail that you've done for Con 220. So it's pretty straightforward. If you're a Revit user, lectures, workshops, you're going to navigate to Revit. Workshop 3 is part of assignment 2. The links will also be provided in the assignment, so this will be very easy to find. Once you've launched Workshop 3, I've provided a PDF example of what you're going to do for the workshop, and you're going to use this information then to reproduce your own detail that you did for Con 210. Okay, straightforward. If you go to the workshop folders, you will notice I've provided you with some information. Just download everything onto your local machine, and then we'll unpack it from there and start working on your project. You will need to re-upload a PDF and your project file when you're done, but the links will be provided. So for the meantime, work on your own computer. Straightforward. So go and download these files, download. Now it'll ask you to download somewhere. My computer will tell me to download it where I want it to download, but please note a lot of yours will be in the downloads folder, so you might have to extract the information from here. But I'm going to put it on my desktop for now. Okay, so for now I'm going to save it on my desktop, and I'm going to close this window. So here we're going to open up the project files, and we're going to start creating our detail. So on my desktop, you'll notice I have a OneDrive folder. I'm going to extract this information. So just extract the information, extract to, you can give it a name. So I've just used the OneDrive folder. I can delete the zip folder. So on your desktop, you're going to have these files. Now basically, make these files your own. Alternatively, I'll move them into the place where you're going to work. For now, I'm going to leave them in this folder because I'll upload them to OneDrive. I won't need them later. For now, so this will be a temporary location where I'm going to work on this exercise. I am then going to click on the exercise Revit file. I'm going to launch Revit. So you'll notice I've given you a head start when you open up the Revit file. You also have a PDF that you can access, which you can look at from time to time. Okay, so for now, we're going to focus on the Revit file. Okay, once the Revit file opens, you'll notice it'll open on this landing page. So the first thing I recommend you do is go and save this project. Save as. Please follow the instructions in the assignment. You'll notice I want you to save your files in a very specific way. So save it as per our naming convention. Okay, this will help for when you upload it later, and you can keep track of your file. Straightforward. So save as, save it on, give it a new name, and then carry on. I'm going to leave it like this for now because this file, I'll recreate it quite quickly, and then I'll explain how you'll have to export it and make it your own. Okay, so save the file as you wish. Just remember, when you upload the file, just give it the correct name. So you'll notice I've got an example as per the PDF. I've done a hand sketch of a eave detail. Now this hand sketch is 1 to 10. Now I've uploaded this image, and I'll show you how to do this in a second. When you're going to recreate your own scaled image over here, you're going to load it in, you're going to create an image and load it in. So this image I'm going to use to quickly draft this example. Okay, so the PDF file, you can see I've done it in a lot of detail, but it's how I took this image and a couple components and then created this detail very quickly. Okay. So I've given you the outline of the truss. It's just I've given you a starting point, and you can see I've given you a series of reference planes that we're going to work around. Okay, so that's our starting point, and I've given you a clue in the sense of how the truss is going to work. We're going to add some additional information to the drawing in a minute, but I'll explain it step by step. So we've got our truss in place. It doesn't quite look like this drawing yet, so we need to do some changes. And now we've got a couple of components. So in essence, every time you start a drawing like this, throughout Revit's project files, we're going to have access to quick components, line types. Okay, so all kinds of line types. We can view them in a different way. So I've given you a start of how these drawings are put together. Okay, so it's a tool set that you're going to start getting familiar with, so that when you put these drawings together quickly, you can actually do this quite quick. Okay, so there's quite a systematic approach how we create drawings like this. Okay, great. So I've given you a head start. So the first thing you need to do is that you want to start building from the structure out. So identify all the structural elements, and this is where your hand drawing will give that illusion. So all the structural elements that you've cut through will have a hierarchy, and will be a lot thicker it'll be a lot more visible, and that's just outline the structure. So let's quickly start putting our structure in place as per our sketch, and then I'll show you how to add the additional finishes and how to work with those items. Okay, so we're going to start with all the structural beams, battens. Okay, straightforward. So if you read the drawing, you'll start identifying what these things are and how they work. So in essence, I've got a blank set of trusses. There's no outline. So the first thing I'll do is, you'll notice if you click on this object, when we draft, if we go to annotation, we're going to use a lot of filled regions. Okay, a lot of filled regions to create these shapes. So in essence, I've given you a filled region already. So I'm going to select the filled region, and I'm going to go and edit boundary. I'm going to select the boundary quickly. At the moment, these are set to invisible lines, so they won't be visible. Okay, so select all the lines. I want to change how they look. So I'm going to change the outline of a filled region. So instead of being invisible, so this is a special setting, so the lines are not visible, but you get the shape or the fill. So I'm going to go back to 2. I'm just going to give this an outline of 2, so a line weight of 2. Finish. If you want to get familiar with line weights, there's a starting view that you can go to, and you can go and refer to the different line weights. Okay, so how they work, how they're prefixed. But for now, if you follow my instructions, this should be pretty straightforward. Okay, so for now, you'll see actually edit boundary. These lines I want to keep invisible because I'm going to simulate I'm cutting away part of my detail. So I'm going to click on my keyboard. If you watch the keystrokes over here, what keys I'm using. So I want to find this invisible lines. Okay, so I'm going to set that to invisible lines, and if I finish the command now, you'll notice those are invisible lines. Okay, so straightforward, I've got the outline of my truss in the background. Now I'm simply just going to go and add some structure around. So you'll notice in Revit, we're going to use detail items. Okay, so these are pre-built detail items that will give us certain components. So we can reproduce certain beams and columns quite rapidly with one component. Okay, so if you want to insert these yourself, if you go to Annotate, Component, these are detail items. So if you go and look for different families, there's a whole lot of them, and you can simply search the names. Okay, so there might be some pre-built. So you've got a timber section, a timber batten, for example. We've got a cornice. We've got a gutter, a rainwater gutter. Okay, so we've got some items. We've got some special families that we'll get to later. Okay, so all we need to do now is assemble our detail using these components that are pre-built in Revit. So I've given you a head start. I would like you to get rid of this information later to make the detail look like mine. So for now, keep this information here, but I can simply start moving these into the right location. So put my little beam in the right place. So this will be a wall plate, for example. So we've got a wall plate, and then it connects to stud. So we need to start working out how big the stud is as well. So I've given you some sizes, very straightforward. Okay, so the stud in this essence will be 50 by 114. so that's how big it is. I need to move it in place. Okay, so these detail items are quite intuitive. The way they move around, they will snap into place. So you can set them all different sizes. Just remember, you'll have some settings here where you can see the different sizes of the element that you're creating. Okay, it's just not a great name. I'll maybe want to rename this family so that I can work with it better. But for now, we can leave it as it is, but it'll be straightforward to go and rename that as well. Okay, so it's good to work with items that you can go and identify. So I think it'll be this family one over here, family 2. So I'm just going to rename this quickly and make this timber beam. Okay, so I've got some beam components now. I can manage my families over here as well. Good. And I can make different, so here I can go and set different parameters, but for now I'll just leave that as, because it doesn't matter because this is an instance parameter. Okay, so it means that you can drag these grips to make your components a different size. So here you can snap them intuitively as well. Okay, so let's go back to my drawing. So I've got a 114 by 50 timber. Okay, 114. My apologies, 114. Okay. Make sure that you move things to the right location. So make sure that you use your line weights so you can start working accurately. So sometimes you won't see these little inaccuracies if you're working with line weights on. So just remember to toggle your line weights so that you can snap these objects to the right location. Okay, so pretty straightforward. Snap to intersection. Okay, so I've got my first component. Now, this is quite quick to put together. So I've got 2 of these on top of each other. So one's a wall plate underneath the truss. Now I've got a bit of stud, so that will be a stud wall, for example, and I've got another one and a 600 center from there. Okay, so grab the stud, copy it down. Great. So now that's in the right location. You'll notice I've given you some grid elements that we can use later, but the whole time, if you want to, you can bring these forward, or you can send this detail back. I've just given you this information to help you to set out your structure a bit better, but you can make these elements yourself when you go and recreate your own detail. Okay, grab this element, copy it down, 600. Great, so I've got that bit of stud now in this location. Okay, now what's next? We've got some timber branding to hold up the ceiling. Okay, let's have a quick look. Maybe that's 50mm from there. I've got some external stud work, but that's actually on a ply board. Okay, so we've got a ply board somewhere. Alright, so I've got some elements to put together. So as you've gone and designed your own eaves detail, if you need components, you can draft them using filled regions. But for now, use the elements I've given you, and in the workshop you can ask for assistance if you want to build some custom type elements or details. Alright, so I've got some boards. I've given you some board. I've given you some plasterboard. Okay, so let's see. I've got some board on this side, So let me just put the board in place, because maybe that'll help me with some other items. So if I go and edit the boundary, so edit the boundary of this element first, you'll notice that it's 12mm. And in my notes, you'll see that I'm specifying a 12mm ply board. Okay, so let's work with a 12mm ply board. So this board is correct. But remember, this is a filled region, but you can use it like a intelligent object as well. So I'm going to move this element. Move it from here. I'm going to snap it to here. Okay, it's sitting behind an object. Let me just bring it to front. I'm going to rotate this. I'm going to place my cursor, snap it down. Okay, so I've got a board. Pull this down. Okay. So I'm starting to use the elements. I'm starting to put my detail together. As you've drafted or you've drawn it, start putting your object together. So these are types of boards we'll use, ceiling boards, Okay, if you need help making other types of boards and materials, just let me know. You'll see I've added some vertical sheeting as well. We'll get to that in a second. So I'm just going to quickly build the structure and do it in a logical fashion. So I've got an internal board. Okay, I've got some elements at the end here. Okay, but let's get all my battens in place. So I've got a 38 batten. So let's copy this object. I'm going to go in this direction. Place it just over here. So this is going to be a 38 by 38 batten. If you read the notes, so 38, 38. Good. I'm going to move this to there. Okay. So I've got my first batten. So I'm just trying to illustrate, if you want to work precisely, you can see we can snap on to other objects. So let's just move this quickly. Move. Use your shortcut, so SE, snap end. Go to move objects. Snap end, snap end, snap end. Then we're going to move this object 50. So if you go and look at the drawing, I'm starting to put all the elements in the right location. There was a slight inaccuracy here. So just be careful if you're making mistakes. Just remember, work with your line weights. What's nice about Revit, you can use the quick align tool. So as you're working, start to make sure objects align with each other. Now that changes these objects. That's the only thing I hate about these. So we'll just move this down and align. Yeah, so we're going to move this object back. So move this object back. Move to there. Okay, then this object DI. Okay, that object needs to be 50, but remember plus 25 equals to 50 plus 38 divided by 2. So this needs to be 50. Okay. Now if you go and read your notes, these are at 450 centers. Copy this from the center. So if you select an object, it will snap in the center. Make sure you lock it on the horizontal. Okay, you'll see once you hold shift down on your keyboard, it will lock it on the horizontal. 450. Okay, so it's quite straightforward. We're starting to get our components in place. So I've got a board here, I've got another batten there, I've got some tiling battens that I'll need, some roofing battens I'll need to put in place. Okay, and I've got some centers to work with. Okay, so let's copy this object again, copy this up. I can use the line tool now, align. So the line tool over here, align the object around the center. Here I can change these. So if you go and read the notes, so it's a 38 by 50. So I want my height to be 50. Then I can move this down. Okay, now I know that these need to be at certain centers, so I can copy this again. Snap end, snap end, snap end. I'm going to leave this object here for now. I'll draft around it in a second. Okay, so I'm getting my structure in place. Okay, so the drawing's coming together quite quickly. So remember, you can use detailed line work in the beginning to try and set out where things are located. But you'll see the workflow, how you're putting this together is important. Okay, straightforward. So now I've got all of that in place. So let me start putting the internal linings, because I've got those faces now. So copy this. So move this to here maybe. Rotate. Just make sure copy is not on, because sometimes it will keep copying elements, so that'll be annoying. So I want one there. I'm going to copy it up again to this point over here, so snap end. Rotate. Place the cursor on there, so I'm going to say maybe that will go in that direction. Great. Alright, so now we need to make a connection, so I'm going to use the line tool. Okay, because we're using filled regions, they work intuitive. AL on your keyboard will link those, will lock them, so I'm going to go align again. So I've given you a fence in which to work. That's a reference plane, by the way. Okay, so you can go to architecture, you can create reference planes. So that's what this is. Okay, so I've got that in place. I'm going to press the align tool again, so I'm going to go align that, go align again, and I want that to lock down there because now that's starting to fall into position. Okay, so remember these, I'm going to stop my detail here and here. I've given you an example of how I cut my details, but remember this will never print. It's just a guideline to help you work to a certain extent. Okay, so it's important when you're putting these details together that you fit them on your sheet. Okay, so remember this will be on a sheet and we'll need to work within these bounds. Okay, so now we're starting to make a bit of progress. So we've got a detail. This technically won't work in this location. Okay, and we've got a component that needs to go over here as well. So let's go and look for this component. So this is a fascia board. So this is a group. Okay, so you can use groups as well. So I've grouped a filled region. So you go and group an object. You can make all different types of groups. So I've made this a group. You can go and edit the group if you wanted to change it, but for now just use it as a group, because in previous videos I've shown you how to make some of these components. Okay, so I'm going to move this, but you can ask for help as well in class. Okay, so this will be located over here. So I've given you like a grip, typically where these things are located, how they work. So I've put that in the right location, and you see it's undercut to the right level. So this component will work with the type of detail I'm trying to produce. Okay, now I've got another board that needs to go in there. So copy this. I'll put in that location, rotate it, place. So I'm going to place it from there to there. And I'm going to go align to this line for now. I'll know that this will be cut back somewhat somewhere, so we'll, okay. So if I go to my detail now, I've got something over there. Okay, so something has to happen here. So I'm going to have flashing there, maybe. So move this. Remember, this is a filled region and a group again. So at any point you can go and edit this. Edit group, and it's a filled region. Edit boundary. So you can change these boundaries and make your own, and make different groups like this. So just cancel. I don't want to save changes. Yes. Okay, so now I've got some flashing in here maybe. Okay, so this is starting to come together. So I've got flashing. So I'll need my flashing to fit in here. So then I'll just have to put some external rendering at a point. Okay, so I've got some sort of structure to hold up the soffit board. Okay, so here, let's put this in here. So let's grab one of these. Copy. For structure, I think I'll make this a 50. So I'll drag that out, so that will be my 50, just for a bit of extra strength. And it gives me some extra material in which to fix this board. So I'm going to move this, put this against here. Good. This I'll take maybe to the center of this. Okay, so that'll work well. Okay, so that's enough tolerance. You can go and measure this and dimension these in more detail later, but for now, this is how you assemble some basic details and start to resolve these things. Okay, so I've got another timber rendering down here. So grab this guy. I've got a center line to work with. A line. But this will give me its position. So if you use guidelines in the beginning and work planes, you can actually, or reference planes, you can set out your model quite quickly. Okay, so building out basic structure, so using reference planes and these types of guidelines, they're just detail lines. Okay, so they're just line work that we use. Okay, we'll get to the line work in a minute. I'm just building the structure quickly. So I've got some sheeting there. Okay, here I've got an issue. So I want to recreate a full region. So instead of going to architecture, annotation, region, okay, so full region, select the full region that you want to use, the type of fill. I've actually got one in the file for you already. So if I select this object and I right click on this object, I can create similar. So it'll recreate this object again. So that's quite handy, but I've got different line work I need to use here. So I'm going to go and find the correct line work, because actually this is timber section. So I'm going to say, well, actually that line I want to use, that line I want to use, and that line I want to use, and that line there. Because this is going to be my first pattern, which will be slightly different to the rest. Okay, you'll see we'll have some waterproofing detail or a damp-proof membrane that we'll need to incorporate here. So trim this information together. While you're working, you can isolate these elements, okay? So you can just focus on working those objects, but now you do have an issue with another object above another object. So I want this full region, so I want this object, bring to front. I don't need that object anymore because it's done its job, because it's given me an outline for the first pattern in essence. So that'll be my first pattern that will help fix the fascia to the truss. I've got to add some line work to it now. So you'll notice I've got some line work in the file. But I know by using this file a lot, there's some line work pre-built in Revit that will help you get the information to look correct quite quickly if you know where they are. So if you go to detail line and you go to line work, you'll notice that you've got a lot of line work here. But I know that this is a hatch line. So anything that's hatched in your model, any fill, you want it to be the lightest line weight. And this is the line that would always use to do that or represent that information. So you can see straight away, I've actually done a lot of work to complete my file. So now I just need to add in the roof sheeting, okay, the cornice, some extra information, but we're actually in the home stretch now, and then add a few more components. And let's move this to the right location. So you'll notice I'm moving away all this information to build this. So do the same for your model, and you can always copy these elements in your own file to recreate your own detail. Okay. If you need to make some extras, I'll be there to assist you, but try and use the information I've given you. So I'm going to move this to here. I'm going to rotate this, so around there. Okay, so I'm going to stretch this. So you'll see working with Revit is quite intuitive. Okay, I don't know where this will end, so we'll have a look at that in a minute. But it's taking shape. That's a full region, edit boundary. I want this to align, so align tool. So remember the align tool. That to that. Straightforward. That's cut, so maybe that must be hidden. Okay, straightforward. We'll add some information to the line work a bit. So like these lines we'll show you now, we'll sort out. So we'll need to reproduce this again as well because we've used it elsewhere. Copy that to there, move that to there, rotate. So place. Okay, so again, tab, so edit boundary, align that to that, finish. Okay, so our file is actually taking shape now. So we're in the home stretch. So now we've got finicky little things that we need to add. Okay, so this is what completes doing a detail like this. You have to do a lot of little nitty-gritty line work, but once you've got all the basic components in place, it gets quite straightforward. Okay, so I've given you an insertion point, so let's put this over here maybe. Okay, so let's just go and check our detail. So space these objects, try and use like rounded dimensions. So you see, to put a detail together like this is actually quite, once you get into the flow of doing them, using the right files and objects, it's quite easy to put a detail together like this. Okay, so you can use dimensions in your items as well, but for now I just want to round these dimensions off so things are a bit more logical and make sense. Okay, now, so there's one more thing we can do to this roof sheeting, for example. If I go and edit the boundary, the line weight or quality I can change. So if I finish this now, you'll notice that it will represent cutting through like an IBR sheet or roof or a sheet metal profile where you're cutting through the element that's slightly thicker than the other part of it in the distance. Okay, so it just makes it read a bit better. I can do the same with this one as well. So you'll cut through that part of the detail or sheet. Okay, so put your corners in the right location, move this element. So there's snap points built into these items as well, so it'll help you snap them into the right location to be accurate. Okay, so I don't need that anymore because it's done its purpose. Here we might have to remove some line work. Okay, so there's two ways to do this actually. If you go to edit boundary, you change it to invisible. That works. However, you can also go and edit you can go and override the line work. You can actually go and override it a different way. So that So there's a tool that will allow you to override the line work as well. Okay. Okay, but this is going to take shape. So let's just put our insulation in. So the insulation is slightly different. This is a special tool that we use. You'll see there's a tool at the top here that's called insulation. So you can use this insulation tool. Okay. So if you go and you can edit its width. So as you use the tool, it will represent everything correctly. Okay, so this is straightforward. So you can actually go and say, I want to draw insulation from here to here. So that's quite neat. The only thing you have to understand with this tool is how it works or how it's referenced to an object. So I'm going to move the reference from this. I'm going to make this 0. I know it's 80 mil. So that must be 38 because we've got a batten as well. Okay, so now our insulation. So you see it's a special tool that will represent insulation because it's a type of line work that we use so often. You can simply move it. Use the align tool. Align that. We need to rotate it a bit, so grab it from there. So you can drag these points as well vertically. Snap in the middle of the line, so here you can use it to represent, so that'll be 0, that'll be 40, my apologies. Okay. this one will be 40 as well. There we go. Now we can just use the trim tool, so I can trim this element to there. So the tools are quite intuitive, so once you've put them in the right location, you'll see they're very easy to use and start representing information in your models quite quickly. Stuff that you should typically see on a drawing. Okay, so that's what makes the software quite intuitive. I can now just trim again. I can use this line again. Okay, so very easy. Here we can overwrite some line work if you want to overwrite line work. Okay, but it's easy. Edit. Make sure it's invisible lines. Okay. Excellent. So these drawings are very easy to put together. I'm going to grab this information. I'm going to bring it right to the top. So bring forward. Sometimes if it doesn't want to bring above everything else, you can go and edit the object and inside select everything and then bring to front. Okay, so there's still objects that it's hiding, so maybe bring front again. There we go. Okay, so bring to front again. So these are groups that I've preset, but you can use them and you can overlay them to represent dimensions and information like that. Okay, but you can also use them to set out your detail. So you can use these draw tools very easy. Okay, so I need to make some flashing. Let me just have a quick look. I just need to recreate some line work. Just remember, keep saving your project. Okay, so all we have to put over the battens at the moment, or to work with the battens, will be a roof underlay. So that's just to stop water ingress into the building. So it's just an extra barrier and it keeps dust out of your roof space. Okay. So if we create that layer, create similar. So this line needs to work in a very specific manner. So I'm going to start working. Okay, so probably go from there to there. We'll go up, over, and into the gutter. Okay. At any point I can nudge these points, move them around. Okay, so to represent what's going on here maybe. Okay, so I've got a good fair detail line. I'm going to use that again, so I'm going to use it again. I want to go from there to there as well. Okay, if I press tab, because if you connect all these lines, you'll see they'll become one line. In essence, you can use them as one line. So I'm going to go to offset. I'm going to go and offset everything, not a copy. I'm going to offset this by 2 mil. So press tab to select all of it. So press offset again and then tab again. So I've just offset the line work off the element to represent a DPM. So that's quite easy to do. So that task is complete, so straightforward. Now I've just got some hidden line work, so revealing what's going on behind some of these elements as well, because we've got most of the other information in place. I've got a DPM to happen here as well. So again, click on this object, right click. So if you want to use a line type again, create similar. So any line type that's in your file at the moment, you can recreate in your view quite quickly. So I'm going to pull this down here. Okay, and then again, I can just simply move this because I know 2 mil. Okay, so there's my breathable membrane. So it's just, it'll be shown on the side of the insulation if you do a bit of research. Okay. Right, so my details actually finally come together quite quickly. Just some detail line work over here. So that's very easy to do, and I've given you a start. Okay, so DPM, we've got to use that. So I want to use 2 hidden. Okay, but this is also quite quick now. So if I go to Annotate, remember detail line work. So we're always using detail line work here because it's 2D elements. We just learn to draft first because we're going to do a lot of drafting like this in Revit over 3D objects. Okay. Alright, so right, detail line work, one last little element. So very straightforward, 2 on your keyboard, get the correct line weights, hidden. So here we're just going to try and work out how would they do this. So I draft in the beginning, I'll try and work out and see where the structure would go. So if they put them together, maybe we use some other line work here. So maybe just line weight 2, because maybe this one goes past in the front, so hence the other board is hidden. Oh, okay, so that will work, but maybe how far would they take it from here? Maybe 125, 150. Okay, so you've got a decent overlap to overlap these objects, so that will snap to there pretty much. Okay, so that worked. Oh, here I've got some extra detail line work, so DL on your keyboard very quickly, line weight 2. So I'm going to show you some information in the background. So if you lock it on shift, it will snap to objects. You snap them to your X, Y, or northeastern axis, Again, so this one will come up to here, so hold it on shift, snap it into too far. Remember, you can use all these other tools over here, so if you want to snap things or cut things back, trim single. Okay, now I've got some hidden line work, so DL, 2 hidden, lock down shift, so that'll go behind there, lock down shift, lock down shift. Okay, so there might be some sort of connection at the back of this, there might be a clash, but for now we're drafting. Okay, so try and work out how you think this detail should go together. We're not going to show all the nuts and bolts, this is enough information for your details at the moment. Okay, we show fixing in the beginning as these center lines. Okay, that represents where things will be fixed. Okay, alright, so now our detail is actually almost complete. Okay, so once it's done, straightforward, you can go and add the dimensions if you want. I'll add 1 or 2. So straightforward. So built into Revit, annotate, aligned. So what type of align dimension? Oh, I want to use my diagonal. So pick the first object. So I use dimensions. If this is going to go in a sheet, start using dimensions because they're quite intuitive, because you can use them to drive other objects parametrically as well. So that's quite nice. Now you can just go and add additional. So I'm using the center lines because I know those are proper rounded numbers. You can go and extend an existing dimension line, by the way. So I want to extend that one from there to there. Click away. Go and add some basic dimensions. It's a good way to learn how drawings put together as well. If you use dimensions, so it was to that point there. So if you get the wrong line, you want to go back to there. So that's your overhang. Okay, so using dimensions, very intuitive. So I'll show you very great examples. If I go from there to there, I know that these must be at 450 centers, but I can rapidly, using a dimension in the drawing, reset something. Okay, so that's very intuitive. Okay, but that's enough information for now. I've used all the line types that I needed, so get rid of this information. You can lose that information now. Okay, so I'm going to show you how you're going to add additional information to this now. So we've drawn the object, but instead of just leaving a drawing without notes, these drawings go hand in hand with notes. So in the project file, this is typical how we would work in an office. You'll have another series of views in Revit, drafting views. So we work in a drafting view. I've given you a whole lot of notes. So I want you to copy these notes, leave them here so you don't destroy them, but we're going to copy these. So use the copy command. So don't use the copy object, you need to use the copy command. Go back to your workshop view, and then you need to go and paste this object. So paste the object and nudge it around. So put it in a good location to work with before you click away. Okay, so now we've got all of these notes and dimensions. We've got to make them work together. So these are also, it's quite an art putting these together, but if you follow like a logical manner, you'll see to put these together is quite quick. So look how I would do it and typically go about doing it and how I would structure my annotations. Then you just simply try and reproduce something similar. Okay, likewise with your own, you can start using my notes and they're very easy to change. So once you've got a note, you can double click. Okay, so very easy to use. And if you go to annotate, text, so you'll see to add these, you've got all the different sizes. As you drop text in, it can become, okay, so using notes are very intuitive because you can add leaders at any point. They're very easy to work with. So just have a look, play with them a bit, but just use the style that I've used and the notes that I've done, and you can copy the same notes and adapt mine for your own detail. Okay, which you'll need to reproduce later down here. Okay, so straightforward. I'm going to move this information a bit further away. I'm going to start with some logical things based on what I'm seeing over here. So it's sheet metal, so timber, roofing. So let's move this dimension. Okay, it's too close to the object, so let's pull it out a bit. Move this in. Okay, so these things, you just want to put them in a logical manner. Okay, so you need to put these into like a logical order so they're just easier to work with. So I'm going to go and show you exactly how to go about doing this. So this will be my roof sheeting. I might kink this down a bit. So to work with these, you'll see they're quite intuitive as well. Try and stick to this type of format that I'm using, and you'll notice that Revit will always try and line text up. You can simply drag text to get it to a decent size. Okay, so these, to build these, you want to line things up, structure them up. And remember, you can move these handles around. So go and move all these notes as per my example. Please remember that I've given you the PDF example as well. So this is exactly how I went about doing it. Okay, so you'll see there's some different styles that we adopt when we are annotating objects. Okay, so we can use Shift to nudge our notations around. So in my example, you'll notice I've done a lot of rework. So I'm going to show you exactly how to rework this detail to look like this. Okay, so this is typically how you lay out your notes. So I've got two types of points. I've got one with a point, so that works a bit better. Nudge this down, nudge it up a bit. So Shift nudge nudges it quite a bit, and just using your nudge keys is a little. I'm going to make that straight. Nudge this up. So you'll see it's quite intuitive to put all these notes together. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video at the moment and then complete all the notations on this side. Okay, so I've gone and organized all of these notes by nudging them down and changing the direction of the arrows. So changing the type of different objects. Okay, you see you can quickly copy these down. So simply you just copy them down, move the notes into the right location, then you can use these notes in your other drawings as well. Okay, so you can switch off the arrows as well. Okay, so that's quite intuitive. Okay, so there's a lot of it's quite quick to put these together. So just go and put the details and move this into the right location as per my example. Okay, so that's your first part of this workshop. I'm going to quickly start doing the other side. So for example, I'll probably start with the gutter. Okay, so by having all your notes together, this will help you organize your drawings. When you're done with this, you can delete it, but remember I used another sheet to get these notes from. Okay, so this will be quick. Remove that, add it in this direction. So here, just make sure it works from the top. Drag this down. So here I can nudge these away. Make it slightly, wrap the text better, nudge it down. Okay, so these are very quick to do. You can simply, with your own details, if you know the notes, you can simply double click and write your own note here. Totally up to you. Okay. Just make sure everything is coming out here. These arrows sometimes are annoying. Okay, so you can go and add all these notes. So go and use this technique that I've showed you. Just remember at any point, all of these, if you select a whole lot of them, you can align them to one direction as well, so it'll align them. Okay, so they're very intuitive to use together, and they'll try and snap to each other. So just try and rearrange these notes as per my example on this side over here. Okay, remember, you can also use this as a reference, the PDF drawing. Okay, so now that we've put the rest of the text into the drawing, we can now proceed with starting to wrap up and clean up the information that we need. Okay, so close this information. Now the next step before we start our workshop, the next phase of our workshop on our sheet, typically these are put on a sheet. So if you go to My Sheets, you'll notice that this view is already on a sheet. So all you simply have to do now is upload an image. Okay, so this sheet is ready to print. But first we just need to add some information, and this is where you're going to do your own detail quickly. So you're going to bring in your own image, and I've given you an example to use and I'll show you how to use it. You're going to import your image, scale it, and then you're going to start reproducing your own section, and then once you've completed that stage, you're going to print this drawing as I'll explain now. Okay, so let's just go back to your sheet. So my worksheet in this file. Okay, so I need to bring in a scanned image over here that represents this information. So take your image of your construction 2 assignment or the eave detail that you've drawn. You're going to load that 1 to 10 image in this location. Okay, so straightforward. I'll go to desktop. You'll see that I've given you an assembly drawing detail in that folder. If I drag this in my view, I can now put this in my view. Okay, so I'll need to scale this image down to the correct size. So typically you should be comfortable drawing by scale now. So I'm going to use the scale tool, and I'm going to use this point over here, this point over here, and I'm going to type 600. So technically, if I measure this distance from here to here, that's 600. That's accurate enough. Put this in the location. This will be an object that you just simply delete. So this will be your detail now. So you're going to put your own image in here, and you're going to save your own technical drawing in this location. Okay, so your eave detail that you scanned. Now you're simply going to use this information provided in here. You can use all this information. If they are in a group that's pinned, you can unpin them and you can extract all the information from them, or you can ungroup them and use the information inside to reproduce your own detail. So please start working in this location. When you're done, you simply delete this part of your drawing. So if your detail's in this location, you're simply going to go to your sheet now. Your sheet. Okay, now you're going to go and enter some information, your surname, You'll notice that this sheet is intuitive. There's some information you can change and some you can't. But for this exercise and for this assignment, put your surname and your student number. That's all you need to put in there. The rest of this information is designed to work like you're in an office. So the whole project, there's people working on this project, but the only information that we need from you is your surname and your student number. The rest of the information, this is going to be in the project library that we're all going to share going forward. Okay. So now that our drawing is looking pretty much set up, just be aware if information in this drawing, detail line, is put outside of this location, your sheet will not print incorrectly. So you'll notice that there's information off the sheet here. This sheet will not export correctly. So make sure that everything is within those limits. Okay, this is just one thing you need to understand about drafting views in Revit. You need to draw the information to the correct size for the sheet, intended sheet. Okay, straightforward. So draw your 1 to 10 detail. Everything is preset to 1 to 10. Once you've got your sheet, you're simply going to go to File, Export As, PDF. Make sure that it's current view only, exercise. Here you need to use your sheet size, A1. Make sure that zoom, this is very important. Make sure that zoom is 100. Everything else must be preset as per this example. Vector. Now, save this where you're working. So I'll put it back in that desktop folder, workshop 3. I know it was my OneDrive file. So that's where I was working. So I'm going to make this my location where I'm going to save this file, and it'll save it as my exercise. You can give it your student number for now, because it's just going to make a PDF that you can upload for me, so you can name it as per the naming conventions. So I'm going to say export. I'm going to say no, because I'm only going to do this once. Now, in theory, if you go to the folder and you go to the exercise folder, this will be my A1 sheet that I can go and print downstairs with import with your details to scale. Okay, so please try and reproduce your own each detail as accurately as possible. I will be there to assist, but follow the technique above and you should be able to assemble your detail. I would encourage you to work as groups as well. Ask each other for help. I'm going to try and simulate an office environment tomorrow so that there will be somebody to assist you. Work in a group. So this is a type of an assignment. I want you guys to work together, collaborate, help each other. Okay. So there's your PDF now. You're going to save this, upload this information. You'll see on ClickUp. So if you go back to ClickUp, you're going to upload all your information here. Okay, so I want your PDF file and I want your Revit file. In addition, if you close the workshop and in assignments, if you go to assignments, assignment 2, so this might not be visible for you yet, but it will be live tomorrow morning. I want you to upload. Okay, so as a student, you'll be able to upload your, it's hidden at the moment, but you'll be able to upload your own file. Okay, so you can download this information, but you'll be able to download and upload. So download the brief here if you need to, but you can upload the project files here. So I want you to upload your PDF files to assignment 2 as well.